Today's guest is Caitlin Christensen, who is a media industry expert who has worked with top brands such as Women's Health, Pop Sugar, at Channel E. And back in 2018, she left it all to go traveling. And while living in Berlin, she founded her first business, Cultivate Creative, which she grew into a highly successful six-figure company. Caitlin's passion for health and wellness led her to create her second business, Fit Websites, which specializes in creating websites for businesses in the health and wellness industry. So, Caitlin, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I am very good. Thank you so much for that intro.
You're very welcome. And I'm excited to dive into all of these things with you. Not just because of and I know we spoke about this off air, the kind of synchronicity nature of how we got to do this, but also, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but so I had a brick and mortar weight loss center for 10 years. So
hmm
whenever somebody comes on that's related to the fitness and nutrition space, I'm always happy to help and bring people on like that. So it's kind of like a double win for me. So I'm excited to dive into all of this. And why don't you just start us off and let us know, how did you get to doing what you're doing, and just contextualize the intro that we gave.
Yeah, so I originally am from a very small rural town in New South Wales. It's actually called Dunedoo, which Australians find really, really funny. And it has about maybe 700, 800 people in it. So just a lot of farmers. My parents were farmers, but from a very young age, I was just like, I'm going to be a businesswoman. I saw them on TV and I was like, that is my goal. So I pretty much started to plan to leave when I was like 16. And then in year 12, when you have to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life, I had absolutely no idea. But I just always really loved advertising and I studied modern history. And I just thought the war campaign ads were just so interesting and just how they could literally get a whole nation to go this way and then to go that way. So I just decided maybe I'll study communications and advertising just because it's like a step forward, even though I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And one of the courses that I did when I was in uni was graphic design. And at this point, I had never done anything creative in my life, like maybe some creative writing at school, but just had really no idea what kind of designing was. And I just fell in love. Like I just aced it. I got along with my teacher so much. It was just perfect. And then I thought very seriously about changing to be a graphic designer, but I didn't want to have a job where someone's like, just design this and then I have to design it. Because that, as much as I kind of am being creative, I don't have any real creative control. So I stuck with advertising. And then in my second year of uni, I heard there was a university magazine. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely going to get involved in that. And I started designing that. And then I actually ended up taking it over and I brought in a whole new team and new editors. And when I started with that magazine, literally barely any people had heard of it. And by the end of it, in my third year of uni, like so many people were trying to become a part of it. And it ended up being quite a big success. So at that point, I was just like, oh, well, I really like this magazine. Maybe I'll apply for a Women's Health magazine. So literally drove to Sydney. I think I had a group assignment on that afternoon. So like drove to Sydney. I did the interview. I literally got the job in the interview, which was pretty cool. And then drove back and then finished the group assignment. And that was me moving to Sydney. So it was my goal from like 16. I'd finally moved to Sydney. Everything was amazing. Working in media, meeting famous people, well, Australian famous people. So I don't know if it'd be that big for Americans, but it was literally just a dream. But I'd kind of completed this big goal in my life so early, and then I was just a little bit lost. So was working for the big brands that you mentioned, and it was great. But then it just got to the point where I was just not fulfilled at all. And I was just working so hard to make money for these big businesses that didn't really care too much about me. So at this point, I was just like, okay, again, I don't really know what direction I should go in. So I'll just take a step forward. And at this point, I hadn't traveled at all, but it's a really big thing for Australians to travel. So everyone would always be talking about where they went. And I was just like, oh, I've no bloody clue where to go. And at this point, I was also pretty scared of planes, but I was just like, I'm just going to have to deal with that. So I wanted to move overseas. I wanted to travel for a bit. And my friend had said Berlin was really cool. And I didn't want to just move to England because I knew it would just be kind of like an Australia, but with an accent. So I was just like, okay, I'll move to Berlin, having never been there, which it was different. And I started applying for jobs and literally like no one when no one was getting back to me. And I was just like, okay, maybe it's time to start a business, but what? So just started doing a lot of research. And then, of course, when I decided that I was going to start a business, then people started getting back to me. And I was like, okay, I feel like this is a bit of a test. But I started my first business going back to what I'd learned in design. And I started creating pre made brands for different businesses. And that started to take off. And then I started doing a lot of it through Canva, which is a very big design company now. And that was just the right decision to make early on. And then I started selling my templates to Canva and getting royalties for that. And then that just grew and grew and grew. But the thing with that company is that I never had to really put myself out there or my face out there. It just grew really successful and I could go behind the scenes, even though I wanted to, but I didn't really have to. And I was also scared. So that was really great. But it got to the point where I was just like, my gosh, like I'm just designing templates and not really having any interactions with people and not really being tested. It's still making good money. Like I need to keep doing it, but I need another challenge. So that is when I started this second business called Fit Websites, and that is designing websites for the health and fitness industry. So a little bit similar where I do pre-made websites so people can just buy them like you're buying a shirt online and then they customize it themselves, or I can customize it for them or create like a completely custom website.
Beautiful. I mean, it's such a like it's a common theme that I hear with guests and, with clients, that just like the quote from Steve Jobs, like you can only connect the dots looking backwards, like they never really make
Oh,
sense in the
100%.
moment. It's like, to me, that was a through line for the story that you shared. So I think it's such a cool way to like zigzag around to what it is that you're doing today. So number one, kudos to you for that. And as a segue then, so what kind of brings you here today? I know you mentioned the visibility bits, but what are really
Mhm.
the top problems that you're facing right now?
So, kind of as I mentioned before with my last business, I didn't really have to put myself out there. But with this new business, I definitely need to. It's so much of an education piece on why I need to educate people on what they need for a website. And I am just struggling so much. So, even with this podcast, I've been doing a lot of work to get to this point, but I'm still so scared. So, I was literally just trying to film some TikToks the other day. It took me half a day just to get one out there because I was so critical of myself. I didn't like what I was saying. And then I had to go have a wine. It was literally a Monday, and I was just like, I need a wine after that. It was so stressful for me. But, and then I was really trying to think about where these different things come from, like why I'm so scared to put myself out there, why I'm so scared to show my face. But yeah, that's definitely when this podcast opportunity came up. It was just like this perfect thing to kind of move myself forward and to be guided by you, and then also test myself by putting myself out there.
So, well, first and foremost, I want to commend you for jumping into the deep end of that experience, because to show up and then be seen and also be coached on air is like all of the layers piled on top of each other to get here, right? So,
Yeah.
I just wanted to commend you for that. So, tell me a little bit more about the visibility bit, because like you're obviously very aware of, okay, this is an issue and I
Hmm.
get it. Tell me more about the thoughts that are happening in your inner experience of
Hmm.
this block.
I think a lot of it is judgment, and that's something I've been working on. And I think I have progressed a lot where, the worst thing in the world used to be if someone saw me and they made fun of me, which of course, like I wouldn't even realize if they were, but just the thought of that would scare me enough to not want to do it. And then the other thing, because I have been tackling that issue so much, is, and it's a very funny thing, but the more success that I get, or I kind of just, it's like a little turtle. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, the success is coming in. And I'm like, I just almost like go back into my shell where I'm getting quite scared of my own success. And I've been trying to understand why, because it makes no sense to me. Like I want this so much. But then also sometimes when like the spotlight is on me, I just almost feel bad, or I feel like I don't deserve it or I shouldn't have it. And then I kind of go back in and I was just like, I need to really work out why this is happening because otherwise I'm not going to be able to move forward.
Got it. So basically, as soon as the spotlight shines, all of the demons sprang up, right? So the
Yeah, I
success,
think
the
demons is a good
turtling,
word.
the
Mm-hmm.
deserving, right? Like all of
Mm-hmm.
that starts to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So does this happen anywhere else in your life, or it's just with regards to business and visibility?
I would even say, like at dinner parties, when there's a big group of people and everyone's looking at me, sometimes I'm even like, oh my gosh. So I'm just really starting to try and notice this because it's such a small part and you have to be kind of like really clued into you to try and notice these things because it's so easy to just not observe. So that's something that I definitely have observed. The other thing is to talk about my success. I don't know if it's different in America, but we definitely have like tall poppy syndrome here where you don't talk about your success. You don't talk about how good you are because if you do, people will bring you back down. So I think that's also another thing that kind of comes into it and why I am a little bit scared. So even with just that intro or the story that I said at the start, like all of that is absolutely completely true. But I don't even think my boyfriend would know that story about like getting the job on the spot and then everything because you just don't talk about your success.
Got it. So however that belief got in there, like that's
Mm-hmm.
essentially a very strong rooted, like you don't talk about your
Oh,
success, right? Especially if you're saying like my
no.
boyfriend doesn't know some of the
Mm.
success highlights that I have.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so also no one really asks as well. And I think maybe I need to make more friends that are having businesses as well, because I think it's very hard to understand growing your own business where friends are just kind of working for someone else. Like I come and have a dinner and everyone's kind of just bitching about their colleagues and talking about their boss and whatever's happening. And I'm just like, I don't really have anyone to talk to about growing a business.
Got it. So I understand the community aspect is important because just being in an environment is always going to make everything easier or
Mm-hmm.
harder. But to what degree is that about getting permission to actually speak about your successes? Like if you were in a community and everybody spoke about your successes, would that give you permission to also speak about your success?
I think definitely just knowing that it's a safe space, free of not being judged for your success. I feel like that would be, I don't know, literally you just said that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that would be so exciting just having a community like that. So maybe that definitely is something that I need to search for.
So yes, I think that the community is important and you can certainly get that. But what I really invite you to consider is the sentiment there. I need the permission to even
Mm-hmm.
speak about this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So then the community becomes a crutch,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what I'm really getting at here is, yeah, the community is going to help, but what's really going to help is getting to the root of why this is happening and then being able
Yeah.
to speak about it. And imagine speaking about it, shining your light so bright that you attract the people who are naturally going to want to speak to you about that versus
Yeah.
let me go find the safe space,
Mm-hmm.
verify that it's safe, be granted
Mm-hmm.
permission from the space that I can do
Mm-hmm.
this, and then shine, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you see the distinction there?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay,
My
perfect.
goodness. Yeah.
And what's coming up as I reflect these things back to you?
I don't know, that made me feel a little bit sad that I feel like I need the permission. I'm not really sure how to also work past that. Do I give myself the permission?
So, what do you think?
I would say, oh my gosh, yes. I feel like I need to literally even just thinking that just made me feel scared in my heart, just giving myself that permission. So I feel like that's an obvious sign that that is a block that I'm having.
Correct. So, great awareness, right? I just want you to
Mm-hmm.
notice that dichotomy. There's a part of me that feels sad that I even need permission to shine my
Mm-hmm.
light of facts. Like I'm not making things up. Like these are facts about my life and my achievements. So I feel sad because I want to express those. Yet, as soon as I even think about, contemplate the possibility that I am the only one that needs to give permission for myself to do this, right off the bat, it's alarm bells and like, nope, like we're not going there. This is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So what comes up for you with that?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that little bit of sadness still. Gosh, it's very funny when you really do dig these things up. where does something like that kind of come from when you need to give yourself permission?
So what do you mean? Where does it come from?
Like
Elaborate on that.
why would that why do I need to why am I feeling like that I need to give myself permission? Is that just something that a lot of people feel? Is it something that just happens like through childhood that you just feel like you need to get permission for things and it never kind of stops?
So potentially all of the above, potentially none of the above. And here's what I mean, right?
Gotcha.
Like visibility issues come up all the time with regards
Mm-hmm.
to the clients that I work with and the people that are on this podcast. So in that sense, you are in very good company and
Mm-hmm.
kind of welcome to being human, right? Like this is a part of the experience. So I say that to just normalize where you're at and what you're going through. With regards to why does that particularly happen to me,
Mm-hmm.
that is beyond the scope of like what we can do in this container. What I can reflect back to you, just given the things that you've shared so far, right? Even holding a belief like you don't talk about your success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how that right away establishes a lens
Yeah.
in which you're going to view every single situation of like, essentially, is it safe to talk about my success? If I am granted permission, then it's safe to actually talk about your success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even just a surface layer belief is going to give you the experience that you're going to need permission,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what lands for you from that?
As you were just saying that, I was literally just kind of thinking in my head, like, imagine telling my friends or my family that I'm doing a podcast, and I just can almost see people's reaction of that, of just being like, I don't know how many. I think some of my friends would be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then I'll be like, oh, goodness. Then I think other people would definitely be like, okay, cool. Like, I don't think my parents would really care. It's definitely something I don't know. I think that's what scares me as well. It's just like me kind of saying these things of like giving myself permission to say the success and it just being met by kind of nothing in return. That scares me as well.
So if you take what you just said and you rewind it,
Hmm.
are those people here right now?
As in, like in my community.
Like in the present moment, because you had the thought and the experience and the feeling right now, are all
Hmm.
those people actually here?
No,
Who is?
I'm here.
Okay,
You're here.
correct. So given that, do you think I'm judging you right now?
No, I don't think you are.
Okay, I would agree. I'm definitely not. So
That's good.
yeah, so just to clear the air. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. All of you is welcome here. That's totally fine. So if I'm not judging you and you believe
Hmm.
that the people that you think are judging you aren't here, who's
Hmm.
actually doing the judging right now?
Tis me.
Correct.
Yeah.
The reason I bring that up
Yeah.
is our brains are going to take archetypes
Hmm.
of people in our life and then project our own judgments onto them
Hmm.
because it's
Hmm.
easier even to imagine, well, these people are judging me. When the reality
Hmm.
is, it's not what they say, it's the degree to which you believe what they say.
Hmm.
And right now, you are the only one that's actually doing the judging. You're prejudging
Yeah,
based
I
off of what you
definitely am.
think they're going to say. So, what lands
Hmm.
for you there?
My gosh, that was just, I think, thousands of dollars worth of therapy very, very quickly.
You can
That is,
just PayPal that to me right now. It's totally fine.
oh goodness, my gosh. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The brain is just such a funny thing. The more I learn about it, the more I'm just like, I can't trust my thoughts sometimes. And that's really important to know. But I think I will definitely when I'm having these judgment thoughts of people prejudging, I will try and interrupt those thoughts because you saying that just it makes so much sense. I really hope that helps anyone else that is listening to this because you're
110%.
absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
like
is
I'm literally doing the judging before I've said anything or on myself. Whew,
correct.
yeah,
And what's your internal experience, right? Like what are you feeling as you say that out loud?
I'm feeling a little bit shaky. I feel a little bit. I honestly feel like I weigh a little bit less right now. Like I just that's kind of just come off me. That
Okay,
was
there's a
just
bit of
it was
relief.
incredibly enlightening. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, perfect. What do you think the relief is from?
I think every time I realize I'm having a thought that's not true, which I've never once thought all my judgments, my prejudgments on what people were thinking isn't true. And that's also with, feel like I've done a lot of work on myself, but not once has that ever been a thought that what I'm thinking people are going to judge me on might not be true. And that's actually just me making that up to like sabotage myself.
Correct. So you just had the experience of basically giving yourself the space to
Mm-hmm.
try and discover who you are beyond the limiting narratives,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because a moment ago, there was a part of you that was so sure that
Yeah.
these people are going to say this. It was literally the lens of your reality.
Mm-hmm.
And when prompted to consider, well, who's actually here right now? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, hold on. It's not Jane Doe that's judging me. I'm judging me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what it's not even exercises, but what this frame of looking at the world is going to allow you to do is to begin to peel the layers and discover what's your wholeness behind your limiting pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's Caitlin beyond all of these limits? Who are you
Mm-hmm.
when you don't have a filter to shine bright?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what comes up when I reflect that back?
I always find that the hardest question. I hear other people get asked that on podcasts all the time. I try and think of what my answer is, and I still don't have a good one. I was like, who am I? Because immediately I kind of go to like, oh, like I'm kind of a half country girl, half city girl, semi, like I was about to say semi businesswoman. I am a businesswoman. I think I'm someone that's just way too hard on themselves, and I just need to give myself a break.
Correct. And that's how the inner critic works. So your
Mm-hmm.
judge, like your inner judge, your inner critic, it actually rests on a foundation of beliefs. It exists
Mm-hmm.
between the constraints of your beliefs. And what I mean by that is it's actually doing its job and it's doing its job really well
Mm-hmm.
because you have beliefs right now. Like you don't talk about your success, you don't be vulnerable, you don't, show your blemishes, like whatever the wording is for you.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you're holding as a
Mm-hmm.
belief, that
Mm-hmm.
inner judge that you're trying to like silence and like go
Mm-hmm.
away and don't say
Mm-hmm.
this, change your thought, all it's really doing is saying, hey, this is what you believe about the world. All I'm doing is just scanning the environment, ensuring
Mm-hmm.
that you're never at a threat to go against the beliefs that create your self identity.
Mm-hmm.
So, what lands for you there?
Gosh, that just makes so much sense when you put it together like that, because it's just so true that I'm trying so much to kind of succeed, but with these blocks not being kind of fixed, that I'm just constantly running into a wall.
Correct. And the reason it's so hard for you to fix all these things is because you're never
Mm-hmm.
really addressing the underlying belief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
if you go down, like if we pull that thread, like what have you tried to actually do to fix all of these inner limits?
I really like journaling and I really like self affirmations. I think that's self affirmations is one of those things where you don't really feel like it's doing something. And then a few days later or like a few weeks later, you're just like, oh my gosh, like I didn't have any anxiety, or that was just so confident, or whatever the affirmation is. So that's something that I work on a lot. I still see a therapist. I also read a lot of self help books. I love reading, and I think it's such a great way to just learn about yourself. One thing that I think happens too much is that I just can go into a cycle where I'm constantly thinking and I'll start over analyzing. So that I have realized that maybe I need to chill out on the books sometimes, because then I'm just getting so into self development. And I think I'm going kind of overboard, that I'm not like, it's all just my thoughts. When I get to talk to someone else, my gosh, it makes so much more progress because I have someone else looking in instead of just me looking in, trying to read these books, doing something.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And to what degree are they actually eliminating all the limiting patterns that are still keeping you stuck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. So I think there's some really good ideas in that, but we're not finding, like what we've already mentioned today, I was never going to get from a book because it's not really addressing the issues with me. It's very interesting learning. And I have to say, I really like learning about why things happen and why the brain works, because, or like why I have anxiety and how that, what's happening in my body, because that also makes me puts me at ease to understand. So I like that part of it. But yeah, we're not really addressing the bigger things because I can't really see it.
Correct. So what do you think you're missing from these approaches, whether it's journaling, affirmations, therapy, books?
I'm not sure. What do you think I'm missing?
So let's look at it this way. You're aware of a lot of things. You
Mm-hmm.
speak very intelligently about the patterns, right? You understand them. As soon as I
Mm-hmm.
reflect something back, you're like, oh yeah, and then you connect it to like something else that you've learned. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
heady, everything that you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. When you think about or about to do something to be visible,
Mm-hmm.
what do you feel?
I think I feel judgment before I've even
Okay,
done
so
it.
it's judgment of feeling.
Okay. I think I feel scared.
Okay, so I feel fear. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I'm asking you this is, where do you feel fear? Do you feel it in your head or do you feel it in your body?
No, I definitely feel it in my body, in my chest.
Correct. And when you now rewind this and you look back at all the things you're trying to do to fix the problem, so I journal, I say
Mm-hmm.
affirmations, I do talk
Mm-hmm.
therapy, I read self help books.
Mm-hmm.
Are those modalities that deal with your conscious mind, or are those modalities that deal with your body and your emotions?
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely the conscious mind where I think I need to go into the subconscious levels and kind of fix these issues, because yeah, as we've said, like I can do the conscious thoughts all day.
Correct. So basically, it comes down to like you're trying to outthink emotional problems.
Oh my gosh, yes, 100%. I
Okay.
also come from a place like Dunny Do, you're not allowed to be emotional as well. So I think that's always been my way of dealing with my emotion, because I think I was maybe an emotional child. I think I was always the most emotional one in my family, but like you just don't have time to be emotional on a farm. There's just too much to do. So I think that just kind of really got taken out of me. And that was probably my way to deal with it, was just kind of being more aware and just kind of dealing with things with my head and then not feeling. And that's something I'm really trying to work on as well. Like sometimes something might happen or something bad might happen, and I actually don't know how I feel. I just go completely numb. And then it's only like late, like hours later or days later, then I understand what I feel because it's so delayed.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that because there's a lot of layers there. So, number one, I'm actively trying to solve these issues, which is good
Mm-hmm.
because that's also going to
Mm-hmm.
be the quality of your entrepreneurship that's going to can continue to make you successful, right? So beautifully done. Now, I'm trying to solve emotional problems by thinking, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not really working. The added layer being that growing up, it was actually never safe to feel. People didn't have
Mm-hmm.
time for it. People maybe didn't even know how to deal with it. Maybe I was reprimanded for actually showing emotions, despite the fact that I
Mhm.
was a very emotional child.
Mhm.
To the degree that you now, as an adult, have observed that there's instances where you don't even know how you feel.
Mhm.
Okay. So I don't know how I feel. There's a very real part of me that doesn't even think it's safe to actually feel. And yet
Mhm.
all I'm doing is trying to solve emotional problems with thinking. Right?
Oh God, it's a recipe for disaster.
Correct. Right. Put a different way, it's like, is it really
Yeah.
surprising that you are not getting the results that you're expecting? Like, I'm not
Mhm.
eliminating these patterns when all of
Mhm.
this is happening.
Mhm. This just makes so much sense because I have been trying to do so many things that I'm just like I'm still kind of finding these blocks, and it makes so much sense. But I think it's also something that I've kind of known, but I haven't known how to address it. And it's also incredibly scary to address. Like, I think there's a part of you which doesn't really make sense logically that kind of wants to keep that scaredness in there or keep you where you are. And maybe
Correct.
that's like a fear of the unknown because what's going to happen when that's all out or when I've dealt with it?
Correct. So there's very good protective reasons that make no logical sense
Yeah.
as to why you are doing this. Put a different
Hmm.
way, there's probably, a very young Caitlin
Hmm.
that is running the show emotionally, because
Hmm.
that's where that part of you stopped growing,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So basically, you as an adult are now operating as an emotional child, right? Because
Hmm.
what does a child do when they don't know how to feel? They retract and they shut down,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
They run away from their emotion, or they go to safe
Hmm.
places and mold to the world to not ever have to be threatened
Hmm.
in this way,
Hmm.
right? So what lands for you there?
I think molding to the world is such a big thing. It was very funny. So when I was growing up in Dunedoo, like I came to Sydney for the Royal Easter show showing sheep. Like that was literally when like me coming to Sydney. I remember I think it was my first year of uni and my team um was one of the best teams like in the assignment, and we actually got to go to Sydney and present to MC Saatchi. And that was literally like my first time going on a train. And it was really funny because the train conductor was just like, watch the gap when you're getting off. And I was like, oh my God, there's a gap on a train? Like, who designed this? And everyone's like, calm down. um, but when I came to Sydney, I really just didn't know how it worked. And I always said, like, I felt like Darwin observing the finches. Like, I just looked and kind of studied everyone and how it worked. And then I kind of became that person. And I've also always said, like, there's country Caitlin and the city Caitlin because I mold myself to kind of each. And it's very funny, like my city friends want to come to the farm, and I'm just like, no, like you're not going to like it. You don't kind of understand. Kind of, it's not even who I am there, but just they're not going to like it. Like it's such a big change. So yeah, I have to kind of I molded myself there to deal with that, and then I molded myself to Sydney. And then I think there is a part of me, like I do know who I am. I'm very authentically me, but it is also an element of who am I? Like I've never really had a home.
Yeah. So again, thank you for the openness, and I acknowledge you for going here, because now all of the patterns, right, are you're starting to see the added layers to it. What you're really good at is being a chameleon, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
what got you through all of
Mm-hmm.
the places that you've needed to navigate, right? Which has its definite strengths. The drawback
Mm-hmm.
is you don't really know who it is that I am without the filters of the environment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm so good at molding in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you couple on top of that, I try to outthink my emotions. I don't actually know what I
Mm-hmm.
feel. There's a lot of layers that come and block off authenticity. Now, add to that, I also have to be visible. How can
Mm-hmm.
I be visible to the open environment of the internet where I can't control and mold like I
Yeah.
can if I step into a
Mm-hmm.
room. You know what I mean? So of course it's going to freak you out where you're going to spend a day, right? Like recording one
Yeah.
60-second clip,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if we just change gears a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
who or what would you be without these limits?
Oh my gosh. When I think about myself and where I want to be, like it is just so confident, just so powerful. Just I see myself like just as a light, and I just want to be walking around and I just want to be open and happy and just me, because I think I can be so much bigger and better than where I am. But it's just, I think it's scary trying to get to that point. But I can see who I want to be, but just it's kind of hard to get there.
Correct, because you have all of these layers that are blocking that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you just stick with that for a little bit, right? So this is Caitlin who's confident, powerful, shining her light as bright as possible, open, happy, being the fullest authentic
Mm-hmm.
version of me.
Mm-hmm.
What would you create from that space?
I think I would talk about, I think ultimately I would love to help people. I would like to share my story and just help other people and have other women kind of learn my story and build confidence with them. Like when I really do see that version of Caitlin, I really want to be kind of on, like, you know, with a microphone, talking to people, helping other people to be authentically them, to help them with my journey.
Okay. So great first layer answer. Now I really want you to take that to like basically I'm asking you the question of like if you had a magic genie that could create the perfect thing from your most embodied powerful self, what would that be? So part of it is helping people, but I want you to really sit
Mm-hmm.
in like the possibility here. What's possible when you're confident, powerful, shining your light, happy, open, the fullest you?
My gosh, I don't really even know how to answer. I guess like everything would be possible. I'm not really sure how to answer.
Okay. So congratulations on getting to the edge
Mm-hmm.
of your current perspective, right? This is why I bring this up.
Mm-hmm.
These parts of you that are so scared to be you,
Mm-hmm.
they're also blocking from you even using the imagination to create the biggest, boldest version of whatever it is that you want
Mm-hmm.
to contribute to the world, right? The question was like,
Yeah.
what would you create without your limits? The limits are so strong that it's hard for me to even think big beyond these
Mm-hmm.
limits because I've spent so long being in them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the more you're saying that, the more I'm just like, it's really, I always struggle. I'm like, what do I actually want? And I'm trying to like think of these goals. And sometimes I'm even like researching. I'm like, what are some goals? Because it's so hard. I know I want to be this big, powerful thing, but then I can't really even think of the goals to get there. And sometimes I even think of a goal and then I'm like, no, that's too big. And I was like, no, that's not
Correct.
allowed.
Right.
And I
It's
was just like,
safest
you
to
got to
play
step that back.
small, right? To stay in the
Mm-hmm.
background, to never stir the
Mm-hmm.
feathers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see how getting to know yourself, getting to
Mm-hmm.
a point where you can be in touch with your own feelings, getting to a point where you can experience the fullest capacity of yourself also opens you up to the fullest capacity of what you can express as far
Mm-hmm.
as a business, your contribution to the world, and all the other big things that are possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So
Gosh, it's all
reflect
just
it back
coming
to me.
together.
Yeah, so it's fine. So reflect it back to me in your words, right? Because that was my interpretation of it. How does it sound with your words?
Sorry, can you say the question again?
So that was like my interpretation
Mm-hmm.
of your situation and your vision. Reflect it back to me in your words.
I'm really not sure what to say again. It's
There's no wrong answer, and you're not getting marked on this. So by all means, say whatever you need to say.
oh my goodness. I just you'll have to lead me in. I don't know. I'm just literally blocked.
That's okay. So again, I acknowledge you for the honesty there, because yeah, this is right now your experience of the edge, right? Which is just a great
Mm-hmm.
spot, scary spot, but great spot to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, what are you feeling internally right now?
I don't know. I feel a lot in my chest. I feel a little bit scared. I still feel a little bit of relief. I still feel a bit of sadness. Like hearing the things that I'm saying, if it was my friend saying it, it would make me sad. So I think there's also going back to the younger Caitlin, the child Caitlin, like that makes me really sad. I want to kind of go back and heal her. I'm sad that kind of what she's dealt with and that she's there and didn't get what she needed. So, and actually that's work that I have done with a therapist. It was just like go back and kind of imagine yourself younger and, kind of tell younger Caitlin that you are okay, or give her a hug or give her what you need as a way to heal that younger child.
Beautiful. Yeah. The inner
Mm-hmm.
child work is definitely going to be
Mm-hmm.
powerful modality for you here. 110%. So since you are at the space of the edge, etc., um, if you're okay with it, I think this is like a good time to like kind of move into a close. Is that okay with you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. So why don't you then summarize in your own words, what did you come into here thinking were the issues you need to overcome, and then what is kind of revealed for you as
Oh
we
my
finish
goodness.
this off?
So yeah, coming into this, and then I was really trying to decide what I was going to work on. And then I knew it was just like a fear of putting my face out there. And then I was literally even researching it beforehand, trying to have some understanding. But again, that makes sense with what we've talked about of like just trying to heal it with my thoughts. And then understanding all these layers and you bringing out and just connecting them and just really understanding or bringing up these issues that I need to go back and just deal with. The judgment that I'm doing, I've always known that I've judged myself much too harshly. I've always known that there has been work that I need to do. And it's so just enlightening and relieving just to hear you bring up these things. And also, just how you said before that I'm not alone as well, this visibility issue. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons why people have it, but a lot of entrepreneurs have it. And I'm sure just a lot of people have it itself. So the fact that I'm not alone and that I'm sure everyone has these problems, and I'm really hoping that everything I've shared and everything that we've talked about could help someone or someone could relate to some of the things that I'm going through. But this has just been an incredibly eye-opening conversation, and I'm really, really grateful that this happened.
Absolutely. And again, I just want to applaud you for diving into the deep end to to begin to heal and explore this. So kudos to you. And if you can just close us off and let everybody know all of the visibility things of where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Brilliant. So, if anyone that has a health and fitness business, so I try and cater to people just starting out and to people that with businesses. So, I always try and cater with people that don't have very much money to start a business, but want something that's really, really great. So, anyone at any level that has a health and fitness business, you can hit me up. The website is fitwebsites.store. You can book a consultation with me. It's completely free. It is not a sales pitch. It is literally just to talk about what's best for you. If I think that I have a good option for you, I'll let you know. If not, I'll put you in the right direction. So at least you leave with something helpful. But that's it.
Beautiful. Well, as always, we will include those in the show notes. And Caitlin, thank you very much for coming on and walking your talk. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Perfect. Thank you.